Okay, let's see how this goes. Because I kind of ended up going down a rabbit trail this morning, as Andrew can be familiar with. So sometimes, like, you have a thought, and then you think, okay, yeah, that'll be something, and then you kind of start digging, and then it leads you to something else, and something else, and something else, and so sometimes that happens. And it did this morning, and so I actually have like a notepad with like stuff scribbled on it, and yeah, it's kind of got weird this morning. I'm telling you, it got weird this morning. I got a notepad with stuff written on it, and it's weird. I got 2 different Bible translations, a Merton book and a Rohr book, so once again, we'll see kind of where we go. But the basis of it came out of a conversation. So, because what normally happens is I have conversations throughout the week, and different things happen throughout the week, and then I come in on Sunday morning, and I kind of come in, I kind of do my initial pacing, which is just kind of, for me, it's a form of meditation, and then I go and I sit in my chair and I actually do a little meditation and just kind of see what comes, and so sometimes it's something right away, and it's the whole message is instantly written, and sometimes it's something, sometimes I get nothing, and I go and I look at the lectionary. I've been using the lectionary the last several weeks. The lectionary let me down this morning. There was nothing in the lectionary, and I mean, there was something there, just nothing sparked anything. And so I just kept thinking. So I had a conversation with somebody this week, and they asked me, they said, well, what are you? And I said, what do you mean? Like, I'm a Christian. Like, yeah, but I mean, what denomination? And I said, well, I'm not. I don't have a, and so it kind of led into an interesting conversation, because there is a tradition of Christianity that I follow. I'm not making my own path. Like, there is and so I started wondering, would anybody here even be able to define or articulate the tradition of the Christian tradition that I typically follow and kind of preach in that tradition of? Would anybody know what that is? Right? Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah, I'm asking, do you know? Like, if somebody said, what Christian tradition does your preacher teach out of?
I would say it was, like, yeah, I would say that you are preaching about having a relationship with God, not, like what? Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, well, there is a tradition that we're following. Okay, what is it? Well, everybody claims to be following the original teachings, right? Right, yeah. I mean, and that is my goal, is to get back to what did the church teach previous to what I call the Roman occupation of the church. But most people will claim, no, we teach the original Christianity, and that's where, fine. I'm glad you think that. I'm glad I think that, and we can be different. Because I'm definitely not a holy roller. Because I'm not an evangelical Christian. I don't adhere to what we call evangelical Christianity that used to kind of be the foundation of our church. I'm not a progressive, or what we call like a mainline denomination. Then there's the progressive social justice Christianity. There's the fundamentalist Christianity. So there's a lot of different veins even outside of our normal, what we call denominations. And so the path that we typically follow, for me, is what we call the contemplative Christianity, right? And this is when you think about the people I talk about, Richard Rohr, Thomas Merton, Teresa of Avila, Bernard. These are people who kind of move forward this contemplative pathway. Some people will call it mysticism. It's the mystics. Thomas Merton, Richard Rohr, all those people would be considered to be mystics, right? Now, that mysticism word gets a lot of people in a lot of trouble. You might remember several years ago, Pastor Ed started talking about mysticism and kind of moving towards becoming more of a mystic, coming out of his cancer journey and that kind of thing. And he wrote an article about Christian mysticism that got him banned from writing articles, right? Because you can't use that word. It's a bad word. And I just always thought it was interesting that I was at college, very liberal, social justice college, learning about these mystics. And then I'm here, very conservative, kind of more, Pastor was never a fundamentalist, but we did have some fundamental teachings, so we held to some of the fundamental Christianity. And the grace movement is a pretty fundamental movement. And he's talking about mysticism and mystics and contemplative, and he knew Merton, and he talked about like a Henry Nouwen. Henry Nouwen would be another one that's more of a contemplative, more of a mystic name. And so I just always thought it was funny that I was getting that tradition from both sides of my training, and I lost some of the stuff that Baldwin Wallace taught me, and I lost some of the stuff that Pastor Ed taught me, but that's the stuff that we kept. And so, but what is that? Like, what does it mean to be a contemplative? What is contemplative Christianity? What is that? Right? And it sounds great. Like, we all want to, it's not contemplative. You just sit around and think all day. That's all we do. We just contemplate things, and it's not. And so, to give a brief, this is where I will use my favorite, Thomas Merton, my favorite book, New Seeds of Contemplation, right? So it starts off in this way. He says, contemplation is the highest expression of man's intellectual and spiritual life. It is at life itself, fully awake, fully active, fully aware that it is alive. It is spiritual wonder. It is the spontaneous awe of the sacredness of life, of being. It is gratitude for life, for awareness of being. It is a vivid realization of the fact that life and being in us proceed from an invisible, transcendent, and infinitely abundant source. Contemplation is above all awareness of the reality of that source. It knows the source obscurely and inexplicably, but with a certitude that goes both beyond reason and beyond simple faith. For contemplation is a kind of spiritual vision to which both reason and faith aspire. And so, once again, a lot of fancy language, but basically, being a contemplative is learning how to just be present, being fully awake and fully alive right now. I'm not being driven by the trauma of my past, and I'm not being driven by my fear of the future. I'm in the moment, still. I'm presently and I'm fully alive with you right here in this moment. Nothing that's going to happen a moment from now is going to affect it. Because I know that eventually this moment that I love so much is going to end. I can't hold on to it, but I can't be afraid of it ending. I have to be willing to live in that moment. And not being driven by the trauma of my past, not being driven by my fear of the future, being fully awake, fully alive, fully present. Right? And so, and then when we tie in the word mystic, what does that mean? What is that? What is a mystic? Mystic is basically just somebody who's willing to embrace mystery. I don't need to know. I don't have to have all the answers. I just allow me to just be free in the moment and recognize that there's a whole lot of mystery that is going on around me, and I can't explain it, and I've never been able to explain it because it's inexplicable. Because it's God. God is mysterious. God is wonder. God is awe. And I can't define those things. I can't quantify them. I can't measure them. I can't count them. I can't graph it and chart it. I just have to live in His present moment, fully alive, fully awake, fully aware. Thich Nhat Hanh, who I've talked about many times, the Buddhist monk, and he passed away recently, and the Sunday that he passed away, I talked about him a little bit, because he died the same week as a guy named Jim Forrest, and Thich Nhat Hanh and Jim Forrest were really good friends, and they were friends with Thomas Merton, but Thich Nhat Hanh was a Buddhist, but really in many ways was also a Christian, because he talked a lot about Christianity, wrote a lot about Christianity. He wrote a book about Jesus and Buddha being brothers. But one of the things he talks about when he talks about the contemplative life, the life of awareness, is that when you're eating a bowl of cornflakes, you're not just eating the cornflakes. You're eating the farmer's hands that planted the corn. You're eating the sunshine that is shown on the corn. You're eating the dirt that the corn was planted in. You're eating and you're tasting and being aware of recognizing and being able to just embrace the fullness and the awareness that whatever it is that I'm eating it because this person touched it. The sun shined on it. It lived. It died. And I'm eating all of that, right? Now, this is a very exhausting way to live all the time, right? And so when we start thinking about things that way, recognizing that there is mystery in all of this, right? How does the sun set? How does the sun rise? I mean, now we can kind of explain it, but there's mystery. And so when we read scriptures, there's a lot of them that talk about this, and the one that kind of hit me today was, and I'll jump around a little bit here. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18, Paul says this. He says, "Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is folly with God. For it is written, He catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. So let no one boast in men, for all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the world or life or death or the present or the future, all of them are yours. And you are Christ's, and Christ is God." So we can chase down all of this worldly wisdom, all of this knowledge. We can get all this information, right? And we're still going to be completely fools. Because we're trying to answer something that cannot be answered. We're trying to escape this ability to just be in the unknown and be present. This is what he says. You know, the life, death, present, future, all of them are yours. You don't need to know about it. You're going to die. You don't need to know how. You're going to die. You don't need to know when. You're going to live. You don't know how. Your life is going to be what it is. How did my life turn out the way it turned out? How did your life turn out the way it just did? We can try to figure it out, and we can try to get all the answers. Well, this event happened back here, which caused me to now believe this about me, and this led me to where I am today, instead of just embracing where we are today. Embracing the fact that this morning I woke up, and I was alive. That in and of itself is inexplicable. Why can't I just live in that? Why do I got to try to figure it out? Why do I got to have an answer to all these questions? I am the way I am. And I spend a lot of my time trying to figure out why I am the way that I am. Am I this way because I was taught to be this way? Or am I this way because this is the way I'm supposed to be? And I try to figure those things out. What does it matter? I am the way that I am. Why can't I just be content being who I am? Why do I want to try to change things about myself? Why do I want to figure out what about me is right and what about me is wrong? So once again, I talk about this stuff all the time. But I'm talking about it because I'm talking to me. I'm not talking to you. I've never once preached to you guys. Well, a couple times I got off track and I started preaching to you because I was right and you all were wrong. But the majority of my career, I don't preach to you guys. I preach to me. I'm trying to teach myself something, but I don't have the attention to listen to other people, right? I can't watch other people preach. I can only watch me. And it's not because I'm that great, it's because I do like the sound of my voice, but because I'm learning things. I'm trying to figure out, okay, you know, I make the joke. Some of you guys have heard me say that after church I have to go back and rewatch the video because I have to find out what I said. Right? Because most of the time I don't know what I said. I'm saying it in the moment. It's not written down. A lot of these weren't thoughts that I had prior to saying them when I'm here. Right? But there's a reality to being able to live in that moment and not have to try to figure out why I am in this moment. Right? And being able to be present, because life is full of mysteries. Paul goes on, and I like this translation better. Well, I actually kind of like this one better. The King James is my favorite translation of this, but it's what's that? Well, it's funny. So when Melanie took over the Facebook page, one of the rules that says anything you post, just don't post anything from the King James. Right? Any translation is fine except the King James. But I do like this version of the King James. But one verse. in the whole Bible, the King James that I like. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, he says, now concerning things sacrificed to idols. We know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge makes arrogant, but love edifies. If anyone supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. Right? And so in this one here, it says, now concerning food offered to idols, we know that all of us possess knowledge. This knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And as in the King James, it says, knowledge puffeth up. And I just always found that hilarious, right? Knowledge puffeth up. But it puffs up. What does that mean? It means that it's inflated. Knowledge makes us inflated. Knowledge makes us think we're something that we're not. Right? Well, look at how much I know. And once again, I know a lot of stuff. Right? Because I have made it my life's mission to make sure that I'm never in a conversation that I don't know what I'm talking about and I don't know more than the person I'm talking to about. And if I find out that you know more about something than I do, you better believe I'm going to go find out more information so the next time we have this conversation, I know more about it than you because my knowledge is in my identity. My knowledge is my security blanket. Me being able to know and me being able to sit down. You want to talk about fixing cars? Now, once again, I'm not a master mechanic, but I'm a trained auto mechanic, right? I can fix a car. I just had to put a battery in my car. Replacing batteries isn't that easy anymore. I had to take off a bunch of stuff. I had to disconnect a bunch of things. I had to move a bunch of stuff out of the way. It took me 3 hours to put a battery in my car, right? You disconnect a couple things, disconnect the tie down, take the battery out, put a new battery in, 15 minutes at the most, you're done. Not anymore, right? I needed brakes on my car. I called Jim Lasky and I said, hey, can I come use your shop? He said, what? I said, I need a place to put brakes on. And I went over and Jim was working, doing some other stuff, and I pulled in and I jacked my car up, I took the tires off, I put my brakes on, right? I put my brakes on. I don't change my own oil because I don't want to have to dispose of it, but I could if I had to, right? So you want to talk about that? I can talk about that. You want to talk about baseball? I can talk about baseball. Football? I can talk about football. Wrestling? I can MMA? I can talk about MMA. Wrestling? I can talk about anything you want to talk about. There's not an area of topic of conversation that I can't have with you. Because I've made it my life's mission to be able to blend into any crowd that I'm in. Because I've always wanted to fit in. And how can I fit in? If you want to talk about sewing, I can talk about sewing. I'll play the ignorant guy. I know a little bit from listening to my grandma and my aunt talk about, when I lived with my grandparents for a while, my grandma and my aunt and one of their friends, they had like this club and they met every Wednesday at my grandma's house and they sewed. And then after they sewed, they played this game called nickels, which is basically like left, right, center, right? But they actually played for real nickels, right? So every week you had to bring your 3 nickels. But so I was able to listen to them. I picked up some of that conversation. And so you guys want to talk about that? I can talk about it with you, right? Because I always wanted to fit in. And how can I fit in if I don't have the knowledge of whatever it is your group is talking about? My knowledge made me arrogant. My knowledge puffed me up. It inflated me. And the best line in the whole Bible, the best line in the whole Bible is 1 Corinthians 8:2. If anyone supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know. If anybody knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know. Fascinating. I don't know, it don't matter. Ephesians chapter 3. We're going to start talking about some mysteries here. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 4, right in 9, something like that. By referring to this, when you read, you can understand my insight into the mystery of Christ, which in other generations was not made known to the sons of man, as it has now been revealed to his holy apostles and prophets in the Spirit. To be specific, that the Gentiles are fellow heirs and fellow members of the body, and fellow partakers of the promise in Christ Jesus through the gospel, of which I was made a minister, according to the gift of God's grace, which is given to me according to the work of his power. To me, the very least of all saints, his grace was given to preach to the Gentiles the unfathomable riches of Christ, and to bring to light what is the administration of the mystery which for ages had been hidden in God, who created all things. Mystery. Romans 16:25. Now to him who is able to establish you according to my gospel and the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of the mystery which has been kept secret for long ages past, but is now manifested by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the eternal God, has made known to all nations, leading to obedience of faith through the only wise God, through Jesus Christ, to be the glory forever. Amen. And Colossians, I always lose Colossians. I can never remember where Colossians is. Colossians is after Philippians. Ephesians is before. Colossians is after. I get confused. You should be used to it by now. Colossians chapter 1, verse 25. Of this church I was made a minister according to the stewardship from God bestowed on me for your benefit, so that I might fully carry out the preaching of the word of God, that is, the mystery which has been hidden from the past ages and generations, but has now been manifested to the saints, to whom God willed to make known what is the riches of his glory, this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. So there's this mystery. And there's this mystery that Paul keeps referring to, and there's a whole list of these passages. Just went through a few of them to give you a kind. He's basically saying the same thing. That in prior ages past, nobody knew that there was a mystery. Everybody thought that everything was done by knowledge, and you learned, and you had information. The Pharisees was all about the right information, getting right information, getting right information. They didn't know that it was supposed to be a mystery. They didn't know that there was any mystery involved in it at all. All of it can be fully explained. Now, Apostle Paul shows up, and he's talking about there's this mystery. This mystery had been hidden from ages past and the age generations. People didn't know about this mystery. But I'm here to tell you about the mystery. And the mystery is, first of all, is that everybody's included in the mystery. Right? So, part of the mystery is that the mystery isn't just for one group of people. The mystery includes everybody. And the mystery is Christ is in you, the hope of glory. Right? Christ is in you. That's the mystery. Because we spend all of our whole life, what are we doing? We're looking. We're trying to find something. We're trying to grab a hold of something. We're trying to attain something. If I can just learn enough information about this, if I can just grab my hands around it and solve this problem that's out here, then all my problems will go away. And we grasp at it and then it moves because we're chasing after wind, according to Solomon in Ecclesiastes. We're trying to catch something that can't be caught. Right? We're constantly moving out. And so the whole purpose, how I started on this rabbit trail this morning was 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you are God's temple, that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is holy, and you are the temple. Right? And so, once again, it started out, okay, well, what is my thing this year? What is the theme this year? What happened? How did this year start out? Because, I got nothing. I can't figure anything out this morning. Let's go back to how the year started. How did the year start? Why are you looking for me? Did you not know I must be in my Father's house? Why are you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house? Which then led me to the story of the cleansing of the temple, where God never got mad at the temple. Jesus went in, God, Christ, whatever, goes into the temple and cleanses the temple. He doesn't get mad at the temple. He cleans the temple. I am the temple. God was never mad at me. God didn't punish me. Jesus didn't come in and whip and drive people out and drive me out. He came in to cleanse me. And, oh, by the way, did I not know that he was already in me? Why am I out here looking for things that are going to bring me validation? Why am I out here looking for things that are going to bring me peace? Why am I out here looking for things that are going to bring me contentment? Why am I out here looking for anything when it's already in me? And all I have to do to let go of all of this striving, Psalm 46:10, cease striving and know that I am God. But I can't cease striving because I can't embrace the mystery. It is impossible for me to just embrace the fact that life is a mystery. There's things that I'm not going to be able to answer. There are things that are happening that I'm not going to know why. All my job is just to be present and just to embrace it. Yes, embrace all of it. Being able to be a mystic is being able to live in the problem without trying to solve the problem. Because I can't solve the problem. Anytime I try to solve the problem, anytime I try to step in, anytime I try to fix it, I just make it worse. My job is not to solve the problem. My job is just to embrace the problem and have faith that God's going to get me out of the problem. But in the midst of the problem, I've had a lot of problems in my life. And I can tell you right now, I am thankful for every single one of them. I wasn't thankful at the time. But I'm grateful for every problem I had. Because all of them got me somewhere else. But the more I tried to fix it, the more I tried to have the solution, the more I tried to have the knowledge that I needed to get out of this situation, the worse it got. All great spiritual development is about letting go. Letting go, just let go. I don't need to know all of this stuff. I don't need to have the answers. I don't need to be able to fix the problem. And if I think I know, I don't know as I ought to know. Because what does it say? Anyone who loves God is known by Him. All I need to know is that I love God. And all I need to know is that He knows me. Once again, this goes back. Galatians. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know. It's somewhere in Galatians. It's not that big of a book. Galatians chapter 4, I believe. I know it's on this side. That's one, so I know it's not there. I can't find it. Now that you have come to know, or rather be known by God. Anyone want to look that up real quick? Just type that in. Phil probably knows because I memorized it because I used to quote it all the time. Because this is what started my big epiphany. Right? Because I was always told you need to know God. You need to know God. But then Paul says in Galatians, I believe it's chapter, it might be 2 or 4, I think it's 4, now that you've come to know, or rather be known by God. What? When was I not known by God? Jesus talking to the disciples in Matthew 7, Matthew 6, 7, something like that, 7:23, something like that. What's that? Galatians 4:9. Did I quote it exact? Technology is great. But now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, right? Matthew 7:23. I'll start at verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name cast out demons? And in your name perform many miracles? And I will declare to them, I never knew you. Once again, remember, I told this story for years and years and years. I preached that verse. I taught a whole 6-week Bible study on this verse. And I always did it as, you never knew me. For years, I read it wrong. And then I read the Galatians 4:9. Now that you've come to know, or rather be known. I'm like, what? And all of a sudden I heard this voice in my head, go to Matthew 7. I go to Matthew 7, and I read it right for the first time. Oh my gosh, he says you never knew me, or I never knew you. God didn't know me? What? And then I come to the passage in 1 Corinthians 8. If anyone imagines that he knows anything, he does not yet know as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. So just as a couple weeks ago, I said, we are not saved by our faith in Christ. We are saved by Christ's faith in us. And I went to the Greek, and I showed you in the Greek, and I didn't show you the whole list of them, but just about every time, and maybe Andrew's done the homework yet, he's maybe on something different yet. He'll get to it. He's learning Greek for me, so he'll fact check me on the spot. But just about every time in the New Testament when it says faith in Christ, the Greek reads the faith of Christ, right? So I don't have to believe in God. God believes in me. I don't have to know God. God knows me. And if I think I know anything, I don't know what I ought to know, because the only thing I need to know is I don't need to know anything. I'm known. I don't need to have faith. He has faith in me. This is pretty incredible stuff. Because when you're the one who's known, instead of the one who has to know, that's a huge burden off your back. If you're saved by God's faith in you, that's a whole lot easier, because my faith is shaky. It doesn't take a whole lot to rattle my faith. I don't think God's faith is ever going to get rattled. No matter what I did, no matter where I went, no matter what you did, no matter where you went, God never once questioned his faith in you. How many of us can say we've never had our faith questioned in God? Right? His faith never wavers of us. His knowledge of me never changed. He always knows exactly who I am. Now, there are times when he didn't know me. I love this guy. I've read this many times. 5. Every one of us is shadowed by an illusionary person, a false self. This is the man that I want myself to be, but who cannot exist because God does not know anything about him. And to be unknown to God is altogether too much privacy. My false and private self is the one who wants to exist outside the reach of God's will and God's love, outside of reality and outside of life, and such a self cannot help but be an illusion. So this false self, this version of us that we created, or that the world created us to be, right, cannot be known by God because it's not real. God only knows the real. Once again, this is why I say God can't see sin, because God only sees us in the image in which he created us. He doesn't see any of the illusions. He doesn't see us as the person who is abandoned by our father. He doesn't see us by the person who is sexually assaulted by our uncle. He doesn't see us as the person who's a victim of trauma or abuse or neglect. He only sees us as the full created being in which he created us to be. This is who he knows. And when we're living in our true self, we're fully known. If we're living in our false self, he doesn't know anything about the false self. This is why he can say, you did all these things in my name, but you did them all in your false self. I never knew you. Depart from me. Now that you've come to know God, or rather have come to be known by God, means because you used to live in your false self, and God had no idea who that person was. But he's been watching your true self, waiting for you to come into your true self, waiting for you to know who you are, so you can begin to live out of who he knew you were. You need to start having the faith in you that God has always had in you. And when you start believing in yourself the same way God believes in you, do some pretty amazing things. But none of this can happen until we begin to embrace mystery. So we can move out of this idea that I just need to have the right information. I just need to answer the right questions. I just need to have it all. And please understand, this is not to me. This is not to you. This is to me, because I've been all of my life trying to find the right information, trying to have the right answers. What is truth? What is right? Because I used to teach something that now I don't believe is true. Do I regret it? No. Because it wasn't not true. It just wasn't for where I needed to be eventually. So I can live in that fear of, I just don't want to teach something that's wrong. And I can allow that fear to drive me. Or I can just be present. Say, you know what? I'm going to trust that God knows me better than I know me. I'm just going to trust that I'm going to show up and say what He wants me to say. Do I get it right every time? Nope. But it's okay. Even when I get it wrong, it doesn't change His faith in me. Even when I mess up, He doesn't believe in me any less. He still knows who I am. I'm still learning who I am. That's got to cease striving and know that He is God. He's got the answers. And I just got to learn how to embrace the mystery so I can live in the present. So I can reach this place of what I would call contemplation, contemplative life. Being fully aware, fully alive, fully awake, fully present. So I can just embrace and love the moment. I'm not worried about which one of you is going to stab me in the back 10 years from now. I'm just loving you right now. I can't live in those fears. I don't want to live in those fears. I don't want to be driven by the trauma of my past. And I don't want to be driven by my fear of the future. I want to be fully awake, fully alive, fully present, fully aware. Right here, right now. No questions to be answered. Nothing I need to know. God knows it. God knows it. He's got to figure out. He's got the plan. All I got to do is just show up. It's all good.